You are watching Co-op for Two, broadcasting live from Champaign, Illinois, Wednesday, July 6th, 2022 at around 11 p.m. If the chat could let me know if the audio and video are okay. This will be a short session today. I suspect under an hour, which might be a record for us. We're playing turn 2 of the Murders by Mail game called Fellowship of Bones, Sherlock Holmes Fellowship of Bones. This is the second session we've played. In the first session, I opened the box, we read everything, we read the newspaper, we looked at all the stuff that comes with the case. If you haven't watched session 1, you should stop watching this, go back and watch that. And you shouldn't watch this if you intend to play this game yourself. It's available on the murdersbymail.com website. You can only play this once. You can't even gift it when you're done. Therefore, we are writing on everything. If you'll remember how these play-by-mail games work, you spend some time, you decide what to do, what your actions are, you submit them, in this case, over a web app, and then you wait for a reply to come in the mail, which is what I have here. So we're going to open this together. I haven't looked at it. We'll read it. We'll get the responses from our turns, and then we'll make our next set of actions, submit it. We'll play it again in another week. So I've got this case scheduled for today, Wednesday, and then we're simultaneously playing the LA Noir case, which is Bloom of Hollywood. We'll play that tomorrow. And then the next day, we're going back to Dave Neal's Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective Baker Street Irregulars. So I was thinking this is a real different kind of test of notes and being a detective, trying to keep these cases, play them simultaneously, interleaved with gaps between sessions. I don't have a great ability to hold things in mind. My memory's not so great, so it's going to be a real challenge. But I think we should just think of this as a sort of experiment. If you're a real detective in real life, you don't have the luxury of working on only one case at a time and one case, every day for a week. You've got to interleave it. So this is going to be a test of our notes. We might start keeping a Google Doc of this. And before we read this, we're going to review our notes and sort of refresh ourselves on the case. There's the map of London, you'll remember. It's a beautiful looking map, different from the Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective map of London. A little busier, a little grittier, a little more like a photo. Anything else we need to catch up on before we review our theory of the case? Or not our theory of the case, the facts and the intro. I see we have Anna, Jonathan, and Steppy has joined us. I talked to Dave Neal a little bit. We finished playing case 10, the finale, the last case in the box of our Baker Street Irregulars. It was pretty epic, 3 sessions, but we're going to return there. And Dave Neal has reminded me not to give away too much for people who just see the video thumbnails and stuff. So I've changed the thumbnails a little bit, but we are returning to the world on Friday. Anything else we should talk about before we get started? I should say that I think we should probably play these 2 cases. I don't know if it's a smart idea to play them at the same time, but that's what we're doing. But I am not... I don't care about, because the sessions will be short, I don't have a strong opinion about what day of the week to play them or what time. So if those who are following along here want to try playing cases like on weekend afternoons, or play one on Monday and one on Friday, or play them right after one another on the same day, I'm open to whatever Jonathan, Anna, Steppy, whoever's joining us for these. This is a good case to sort of join us if you don't normally have the 7 hours to play the long cases with us. This is a perfect case where The sessions will be short. You'll have plenty of time to catch up if you miss a session, and where we'll spend some time collaboratively deciding on moves. Anything else? I just rewatched for maybe the 4th or 5th time a movie that I love called Shin Godzilla, Shin Godzilla, which I think is New Godzilla. It's a fairly recent movie. For my money, it's orders of magnitude better than any other of these giant monster movies. That's going to be I don't think that's going to be a commonly held position. It's not super high budget like the Americanized Godzillas and King Kongs, but for my money, it's almost like a monster procedural, if that makes sense. So if you like these detective procedurals, I recommend Shin Godzilla. Anything else to talk about? I'm going to just jump in and start refreshing us on this case here. So, case started. Oh, let me one last thing. I do think today might be the most interesting session was turn 1 when we took a look at all this. But a close second is going to be this session where we get our first look at what the replies look like, the nature of them. So after this, it may be all downhill. All right, so what's our case? A guy comes to us, John Lawson. He's a member of this fellowship, the FRS Fellowship Royal Society. This is a real society, home to some of the top scientists in all of England. And he says one of their members was killed. He was a paleontologist, checking our notes. The guy who comes to us is Josh Lawson. The guy who's killed is this Warren Edwards. He was a geologist, paleontologist, and he brings back bones from a brontosaurus from the United States. He's scheduled to give a talk. The day before his talk, day of his talk, I can't remember exactly which, he's hanging out in their club, which we're given the brochure for, the Burlington House. And we're told the day's events. He gets into an argument with someone in their sitting room. That's Charles Stewart. Then he goes to the basement to prepare for his talk. He doesn't show up. A footman is sent. Mr. Hodgson is sent to get him. Finds the body, killed almost instantly. Anna says it was the day of the talk. So then the police are called. They go and find the body. He was hit over the head. The newspaper actually has an illustration of the scene. I did notice something interesting, I think maybe not at the time, how this guy, who's probably the footman, is looking off to the side. I don't know if that means anything. But lots of people in this society, and lots of people gathered for the talk. That's right, it was the day of the talk. There were lots of people there. Okay, and then we're told about the police that come, and then he's also reluctant, but he tells us he did have recent arguments with 2 other members of the society, Martin Cavendish and Sir John Young. Oh, that's right here, Martin Cavendish and Sir John Young, that they were having disagreements, but he's convinced it's not them. They say the body's taken to the morgue. Okay. And then we made notes of a couple interesting things in the newspaper. In the story of our guy, we know he's survived by a mother and brother. And then we've got separate stories about some thefts in a gentleman's club and some jewelry robbery. We don't know if those are important side stories. We don't know. And then I made a note, maybe we discussed this, how the guy that's holding him is looking away for some reason. Okay, and then, if you'll remember in this game, we've got three detectives. Holmes got a broken leg or something, so he's not out. He's sending 3 helpers. And that's what we do. Every turn we decide where to send each of these 3 people. They have their own specialties, so much of our decision is who to send where. Watson's a doctor. He's amiable, professional, and his success as a doctor opens doors. There's Wiggins. He's the kid. He's quick-witted, quick-footed. He's a blunt instrument, and he knows the criminal underworld. And then we've got Miss Hudson, who sort of disarms people by her charm and she's smarter than she appears, etc. She doesn't use force. So we've got the blunt instrument of force, the Miss Hudson who disarms them, and then the doctor who sort of got prestige. Okay, and then we've got Burlington House. We've actually got a map of Burlington House where we can send people. We've got our scene of the crime was in the basement at C1. Then we've got the address, the places where the people he fought with, had arguments were, have their offices we can send people to. All right, so where did we send our 3 investigators on our previous turn? We also have our normal informants and then our directory. All right, so, and I'll remind you that the game says be careful what you do because the criminal is responding to our actions and people could be in danger. So we sent Watson to the scene of the crime. He's very observant. Sorry, let's do this. We sent Watson to the scene of the crime. He's very observant. And he knows medical stuff. We put off sending someone to the morgue yet, although it seems like maybe Watson is a good person to send there. We sent Wiggins to Scotland Yard to meet with Lestrade because he seems to get along well with Lestrade. Why did we send him to Lestrade instead of sending someone to the morgue? I'm trying to remember. What was... Oh, for witnesses and stuff. I think my memory is it told us that Lestrade called for the police. They interviewed all of those who were party to the discovery of the body. So that's what we wanted to do. We wanted to get witness statements. So we sent Wiggins to Lestrade at Scotland Yard, and we're using different colors for the different people. So there's where we sent Wiggins. We sent Miss Hudson to the Edwards home to talk to the mother or brother. We thought she would disarm them with her charm. There's the scene of the crime. Guess you can't see this one in this view. There's where we sent Miss Hudson to the mother or brother's house. And then Watson we sent to the scene of the crime, which we marked here. C1, this room in this building. All right, anything else we need to catch up on before I read the replies from our 3 people? This is moving around a little bit. I think maybe we should keep track of places we wanted to send people that we chose not to yet, because I think we're likely to start forgetting those. So we definitely want like maybe a card to remind us we wanted to send people to morgue. And then other rooms. Not that we'll forget this, but okay. All right, so let's take a look at this and see how this works. So I've covered up some of my address, although I think it's probably pretty easy to find my address online if you wanted to. Okay, so Denver, Colorado is where this company is sending from. It's made to look like airmail, even though it's not. The back of it has a little royal seal. Fellowship of Bones, reply number 1. Okay, so let's open this up. So It's been about 2 weeks since we played it. I emailed them and I asked them how long normally between replies. They said they try to get it out to you within a few days, but they had a printer go down. So, but I think going forward, we'll probably be able to play each week. Okay, let's open this up. Let's see what we've got here. So, we've got a map. This is kind of cool. We've got a little map showing where we sent people. So Watson was sent to location C1 in Burlington House. There's a little mini map of it. Wiggins was sent to Scotland Yard. There's pointed a little arrow. And Hudson sent to Edwards Flat. Kind of cool. So I guess each time we get our reply, it's going to show where we sent them. All right, let's see what we got. So first, we've got a reply from Watson at the crime scene, a reply from Wiggins at Scotland Yard, and a reply from Miss Hudson. So each one gets its own page. That's how, sorry. That's the system. Each one gets its own page. And then the last page is front, back, and map. Kind of clever. Okay, here is Watson at the crime scene. The basement, it looks like it's written, each one writes a letter back to you. So here's Watson writing back on his letterhead. He's got a separate address where his office is, Northwest 11. The basement of the Royal Society would be a pleasant enough space were it not crammed to the ceiling with books, papers, rocks, preserved animals in jars of ether, and a menagerie of other scientific specimens. The antiseptic smell of alcohol gave way to the musty smell of earth as we entered the room where the murder took place. It was a bit more ordered, but still littered with wooden crates and straw packing. Who had access to the room during the time of the murder? I asked. As you yourself saw, there are no locks on the doors between the common areas and the basement, so anyone could have come down. But under normal circumstances, only officers of the society have occasion to come down here, and that only rarely. Most of the time, it's the purview of our librarian and archivist, Mr. Keith. A new player, Mr. Keith. We haven't heard of him before. One of the crates was tipped over and dinosaur bones were scattered into a corner. That's weird. A small table in the center of the room held 3 fossilized vertebrae of enormous size. I brushed my hand over the rocky surface of one, noting a fresh chip in the transverse process. Was this the murder weapon? I asked. Yes, that one there. It's a shame that such a beautiful specimen was damaged. Dinosaur bones scattered into a corner. That's weird. And then there was a fresh chip in one. Okay, says, the bone in question was nearly a foot across at its widest point. Given its size and stony composition, it must weigh upwards of 30 pounds. That's pretty heavy. Not something a small woman would be able to easily pick up over her head and slam down. Or a small man for that point. And that's where the body was found, said Mr. Watson, pointing at a blood stain on the floor. He'd been quite talkative upstairs, but was now fidgeting nervously. An odor of sour sweat veritably poured off him. Were he not a man of standing, he would have reminded me of a denizen of the opium dens too long deprived of his soporific drug. So he's like sweating profusely. This is the guy who came to us, Josh Lawson. I don't know why he's sweating so much. I knelt down and traced the floor with my fingers. A great number of overlapping, muddy footprints crisscrossed the room. artifacts of the torrential rain the day of the murder. But just off to one side of the doorway I spied a smear of blood. If the murderer had perhaps stepped in the pooled blood, yes, just outside the door was a clear heel print, going away from the main entrance with its muddle of obscuring footprints. The fever of the chase overcame me, and I hurried down the corridor, passing small rooms filled with books and specimens, until I finally came to a locked door. Mr. Lawson huffed after me. "Where does this door lead?" I asked. "Outside, into the alley behind the Burlington Arcade. I've never had occasion to use it. It's always locked." "And who would have a key?" "Well, our custodian, Mr. Prescott, the librarian, and I suppose I might have a key somewhere in a desk drawer." So who would have a key? Custodian, Mr. Prescott, the librarian, that's Keith. And I might have a key in a desk drawer somewhere. Okay, so he spied a smear of blood. He spies blood, he follows it, and it's someone running to the alley behind the arcade. So if Burlington House is on Piccadilly, which is here, let's take a closer look at this. So if there's the Burlington House right here, there's Piccadilly. It sounds like this door is going to the alley maybe this way. We might want to check this place here, Northwest 5. So it looks like maybe, or maybe it's off to the other way. Let's see. Outside the door, heel print, going away from the main entrance. Passing small rooms until I came to a locked door. It's locked, so someone has to have the key. The alley behind the Burlington Arcade. So yeah, I'm guessing, well, it could be here, or it could be here. Although, if he's running down small rooms, it sounds like it might be here. Although this is the main entrance. So it's not clear. Maybe it could be this way too. It's not clear which way the alley is, but somewhere off to one of these alleys. All right, now what is this down here? Here's my latest chess move. He's keeping track of the chess game he was playing with. Oh, he's playing a game with Holmes. So he's sending along his chess moves, I guess. Can we find the Burlington Arcade in the directory? Yeah, I think that's what they mean. I think that means the arcade of the Burlington, or the inner the area inside the building, like in here. All right. Well, he's given us a couple more people to think about. So let's record this note. So Watson, turn 1, C1, which is the crime scene. We learn about the librarian, archivist, Mr. Keith, who's the one who might be down there frequently. The custodian, Mr. Prescott. And then we've got this thing about Bloody Trail out back. Need a key. And the keys are by, people who have keys are Josh Lawson, the guy who hired us, who's nervous, always nervous. And then the custodian and the librarian above. Okay. All right, next up is Wiggins, who went to talk to Lestrade at Scotland Yard. When I was a lad, I never thought I'd walk into Scotland Yard on my own free will. In those days, coppers were the terror of my world, always out to nick a poor honest lad as was just trying to get by. I figured I'd go there in bracelets or not at all. But now I feel a bit proud. Here I was, a valued colleague, here to consult with an inspector as an equal. I puffed out my chest and strode in like I owned the place. Of course, my attitude seemed to rub the desk officer the wrong way. He kept me waiting an hour before he even told Lestrade I was there. Maybe this is saying like that he was not the best person to send here. Ain't that a copper all over? Lording their power over a little guy every chance they get. I do want to point out that this is a cool feature of this game. This is clearly not a generic text, no matter who you send. So this is specific text for if you specifically send Wiggins to meet Lestrade. Pretty cool idea. Eventually, I made it to the inspector's office, which was filled with overflowing filing cabinets and stacks of paper on every flat surface. Wiggins, why are you here? Mr. Holmes wanted to see how the Edwards investigation is going. It would be going considerably better if I didn't have to waste my time talking to you. Now, Inspector, there's no need to be that way. We're all on the same side here. So you say. I know that Holmes trusts you, but in my experience, criminals who sincerely reform are more rare than diamonds. And worth just as much, I said. That put a lock on his gob for a moment, and I smiled. But I'm not here to talk about me. Who do you like for the murder? He gets right to the point. Oh, Mr. Cavendish presents himself as the most likely culprit. A man of fiery temper and deep conviction, he was seen arguing with the victim just days before the murder. Sometimes a crime of passion is the simplest answer. Too easy if you ask me, I said. I didn't. We're still running down his alibi, but it feels weak. I wouldn't expect the staff at my club to be able to testify convincingly as to my presence on any given night. I know Mr. Holmes prides himself on solving complex and intricate crimes, but in police work, most of the time, the obvious answer is correct. I'm not ready to lay any bets on it yet, but until we can prove otherwise, Cavendish is our primary suspect. You let me know when you're ready to bet on it, Inspector. I'll gladly take your money. Get out of my office, he said through gritted teeth. With pleasure. Okay, that's not very helpful. He didn't get along too well with Lestrade there. This is in an alternate multiverse, not the one we just played, but in a different universe where Lestrade and Wiggins don't seem like they get along all that well. Although it's too easy. We're running down his alibi. It feels weak. I wouldn't expect the staff at my club to be able to testify as to my presence. Cavendish is our primary suspect. That's all he says. All right, well, we have to make a note of this so we'll remember it. This is Wiggins. Scotland Yard. Turn 1. Lestrade says primary suspect is the emotional Cavendish. Did we learn anything else here about the nature of Cavendish? He just says they were fighting the other day. We already knew that. He hasn't run down the alibi yet. Anna says, Cavendish said he was in his club. I see. You're saying you think Cavendish said he wasn't in this club. It wasn't in the Burlington House Club. You're saying it was a different club he said he was a member of? Different club he went to? Cavendish's club. Does he own a club? All right, let's make a little note about this club comment. It sort of went by me. I thought they were talking about the society, but you have a good point. That doesn't really seem like a club. The staff at my club. Okay, well, let's move along here. Here's Miss Hudson writing on her blue note paper. I took a short ride over to Regent Street to the home of the late Warren Edwards. It was a second-story flat in a newly constructed building with a marble facade. Given the neighborhood and the lavish decorations on the building, I guessed that the rent must have been exorbitant. Inspector Lestrade has kindly left word with the landlord, who let me right into Edwards' flat. So this is not the mother and brother's house. This is Edward's flat. That might mean we might be able to find the mother and brother separately. The inside only verified my assumptions. The ceilings were tall with ornate crown molding, and a large crystal chandelier dominated the dining room. All the furniture was intricately carved and gilded, and several large landscape oil paintings hung on the walls. Above the fireplace hung an oval shield made of hide stretched over a wooden flame and a Zulu spear. There was a light spot in the plaster in the shape of a boomerang, as if one had hung there but was now absent. There were only a few of the rock samples and fossils that I had come to expect from a paleontologist, nor nearly as many books as the other naturalists I'd met tended to own. Overall, my impression was of a man who'd come into money and wanted everyone to know it. But he was obviously lacking in taste and discernment. He was in desperate need of a woman's touch. Among his papers, I found 2 letters from the Hampstead Club. The first threatened to expel him over late due payments. The second made good on the threat, though for a different reason. Details were scarce, but it seems Mr. Edwards had an altercation with another member in the dining room. It sounds as if they had been loud and unseemly and had actually come to blows. So an altercation. And then expelled over late due payments, okay? Nor was this the only evidence of someone at odds with Mr. Edwards. I also found a letter from a barrister named Archibald Collins. It was terse and short on details, but it informed Edwards that a lawsuit had gone against him, and now he owed £100 to some unnamed man. There was also a rather rude section from Mr. Collins demanding payment of his fee, which was more than the judgment. I went through the whole flat as thoroughly as you like, only tidying up a bit as I went. But that's all that I found that seems relevant to our case. I hope you're opening the window some while the weather is still good. I hate to think of you in that stuffy room with no fresh air. All right, so they're all writing to Holmes. And then there's the boomerang. Okay, so this sounds like he's in need of money, and did he fake his... Is that what happened? Did he fake those dinosaur bones? And Anna says on the crime scene there was a crate that was tipped over. I did notice that crate. That was weird in the corner, but I didn't write it down, so thank you for reminding me. There was a crate tipped over in corner. That was weird. Someone searching for something. All right, now let's make some notes about Miss Hudson. So Miss Hudson went to Northwest 18, Edwards Flat. What did she find? She found... How would you say this? You would say she found minimal academic books, etc. A missing boomerang. And then she found... He's trying to look rich. Okay. Then she's got a letter from Hampstead Club. Is that going to be the club that Cavendish is part of? I wonder. Lack of funds. And then altercation with another Hampstead member. And then letter from Archibald Collins about a lost lawsuit to an unnamed man for £100, and then owed lawyer fees. So he owes money all around. And he's getting into fights, and he's trying to... He's all about money, I guess. And it says... John says, are we sure there was a mother and brother in the case? I know there's a mother and sister in the other case. I know it is confusing. Anna says, yes, a mother and brother. I think it must have been in the newspaper. He is survived by his mother and a brother. So here's where his relatives are. Mother and brother. Did we write down this person from the news? Joseph Lister, is he in our list of people? Warren Edwards was the guy killed. Charles Stewart, Martin Cavendish, John Young. We didn't write down the name of this doctor. Or, yeah. So, it's also in the news. Dr. Joseph Lister. On scene. We may want to talk to him. He may be the guy shown here looking away. All right, well, we've got a bunch of new places to be interested in. We've got a new librarian archivist, Mr. Keith, who might be down in the basement. The custodian, Mr. Prescott. They both have keys to this back door. Wiggins think it's Cavendish and mentions Cavendish's club. And then Hudson mentions two letters, one about the Hampstead Club, and then the lawyer Archibald Collins. He would know who this other person is that was in the lawsuit and why. That could be relevant to us. Let's see if we can look up some of these places. Anna says, who was the other one who had the key to the back door other than the custodian? The librarian and archivist, which is Keith. So the librarian and the archivist is the other guy who would frequently be downstairs. That's Mr. Keith. And then the people who would have the key is Josh Lawson, the guy who found us, the librarian, Mr. Keith, and the custodian, Mr. Prescott. So I was thinking, let's look up clubs and see what we've got here. So there's the Hampstead Club. So let's write down that address. The Hampstead Club is NW20. Cavendish doesn't have a club. It was a little confusing what this guy said about his alibi. We're not told. Where is Cavendish mentioned? Cavendish is the guy. Martin Cavendish is the guy that we're told just very briefly that he got into arguments with. He says, has he argued recently with anyone else? And our guy says, well, he's been seen recently arguing with Martin Cavendish and Sir John Young, both members of the Society in high regard. And remember, those aren't the two that he was most recently arguing with. The one he was recently arguing with is Charles Stewart, the president of the Linnean Society, with which our society shares a building. I think it's worth considering whether these are fake dinosaur bones that he's just using to get fame and money. Anna says, maybe he's the one fighting with our victim in the club. So Hampstead could be Cavendish's club as well. I wondered that as well. All right, so we've got to pick a place for Wiggins to go, a place for Watson to go, and a place for Miss Hudson to go. It makes sense that we would send someone to the Hampstead Club, perhaps. I think if we did that, it would probably be Watson, because he's sort of the upper class. And we could send Miss Hudson to the barrister, but don't we need to send someone to the morgue to look at the body? Shall we send? That's the problem. Like, where do we keep thinking? We keep not being sure where to send Wiggins. Jonathan says, I have a note that there was mention of Australia in the paper. I think it was in the article about the victim. Probably just says he was involved, but might double check it to see if it mentions any We should look up this Archibald Collins as well. Okay, let's do both of those. First, let's do Jonathan's check of the paper. Mention of Australia. Do you remember what article it would have been in? Was it about our case? Dinosaur bones. John Lister is the doctor. He's best known for discovery of dinosaur bones in South Africa, Australia, and most recently the United States. So that's what it says. He's most recently known for discovering significant bones in South Africa, Australia, and the United States. I think these bones might be fake. And if he lost a lawsuit with someone, that could be over that. That would be a big clue. Let's do what Anna said and look up and get addresses for this lawyer, Archibald Collins. Let's find his business office if we can. Barristers, Archibald Collins is Southwest 59. So we've got Archibald Collins, the lawyer we could go to find out who was this lawsuit with that he just lost, Southwest 59. We can go to the Hampstead Club, Northwest 20. We've got other places in the museum, in this society that we could go to. We could go to the different people that work there. We could send Wiggins to talk to the footman who found the body. I mean, there's lots of people we want to talk to. And then we want to also, though, see the body at the morgue. Jonathan says, Chekhov's boomerang. Is it significant that it's absent? Well, we've made a note of it. Let's write down some of the addresses for these other people. And let's look up Edwards again and see, do we have any address for his brother or mother? We just went to his house. I wonder if that's the only address we have. Okay, so there's another Edwards. So there's two Edwards. Warren Edwards was the victim. We just went to his house. But there's actually another Edwards house, A. That might be his mother or brother, who might know a little bit more about him. So let's make a separate thing for addresses. We've got Edwards A, which is Southwest 56. And then let's see, the other people that were mentioned, we've already got Archibald Collins. We've already got the Hampstead Club. Cavendish. So the Hampstead Club might be the club that they're talking about for Cavendish, or we might have to find Cavendish at his home, or if he's got an office here. Cavendish's home, we can find it. Cavendish's home is Southwest 11. Okay, then we've got a John Lister, who's the doctor who found him. Let's see if we can find his office in Doctors. Doctors. He's not under Doctors. What about, is he in by his name? Lister, Northwest 36. his home address. Oh, that he was one of the doctor first on scene. And then we've got Mr. Keith, the librarian. See if we can get his address. Mr. Keith, this looks like maybe EC54 might be his home address. Might be him, could be someone else. Prescott. Mr. Prescott is the, what was he called? Custodian. Prescott R SE14. Okay, and then from our introduction, let's see, let's check back here. Steppy says, Watson thinks the culprit's escape route is through a locked door as well, so following the trail might be a good call as well. Absolutely. John says, I still think we want the testimony of the footman who found the body in case he heard anything. Steppy says, checking Lister would be good if our examination of the body shows any inconsistency with his statements. That feels like it'd come later. Steppy Barry says, footman feels like a good call. The Linnean president feels a little less immediately relevant, but he was the last guy to talk to our guy. Yes, I did. So we're told in the introduction that the footman is Hodgson, Mr. Hodgson, the footman, and then the last person he argued with is Charles Stewart, who's the Linnean. So the Linnean Society president is B8 from our map here. So I'm going to write his address down. And then arguing with Cavendish and John Young. So Cavendish we already have, but John Young, he was also arguing with. Both are members of the society, but we're not told in what respect. So if we look up John Young in the directory, there's lots of Youngs, but there's a Sir John Young. That's probably our guy that he's talking about. Sir John Young. Okay, so Sir John Young is Northwest 72. That's his home. And then Hodgson was the other one I wanted to look up. And then I think we've got most of our addresses. Hodgson looks like Southeast 13. All right, so what does the chat think about where you want to go? Gentlemen's Club only let in men, so I reckon we can't send Mrs. Hudson there. Neither Wiggins, who is not a gentleman. I agree with that. I think if we are going to send someone to the club, it's going to have to be Watson, who's upper class with these people. who's our top people? I mean, if we stick with our thing about wanting to talk to witnesses before they forget things, then I can see sending... We could talk to the footman and the doctor, the two last people to see him. We could send Wiggins to talk to the footman. He's operates more on... He's a footman, so he's sort of lower class. And we could send doctor to doctor. We could... If we wanted to talk to the doctor, we could send Watson to talk to the other doctor. And we could again send Miss Hudson to the other family member. Or we could send Miss Hudson to talk to the lawyer. The lawyer seems like the lawyer might need charming to disclose some information. So I think that might be not a bad idea to send Miss Hudson to the lawyer. But I do worry about the idea of putting off this trip to the morgue. So we could send Miss Hudson to the lawyer or the other relative. We could send Wiggins to the footman because we got no other better place to send him. And then we could send Watson either to look at the body or to talk to the doctor, who was one of the first ones on the scene. It would be nice to find out the information about the lawsuit early in case that it turns out to be like Cavendish. I was just thinking about the idea of like, could this game... I was thinking about, could this game be set up so that you could go back to a place once you learn some information, sort of like the gating letters on the Baker Street Irregulars. But then I remembered that the game told us you can only go to each place once. So now I really wonder about that. I wonder if that means they would never change what they say based on previous stuff, or if it means you have to be more careful about going to a place because if you go before you get information, you can't challenge them on it. It sounds like we're in agreement for sending Wiggins to talk to the footman. And maybe in agreement to send Hudson to the lawyer. And then it's really about where we send Watson. Do we send him to the morgue to look at the body? Or do we send him to talk to the other doctor at the scene? Or do we send... Oh, we could, that's the other thing. Let's consider. We could send Wiggins to talk to the footman. We were saying there's no other better place, but you know what another good place for him to be would be out the back of the alley. So we could also send Wiggins out the back of the alley to look for clues. Do we want to do that before that trail goes cold? They're both trails that we don't want to go cold. We don't want the witnesses to forget, but we also don't want some outdoor trail to go cold. I think logically, if we're doing our role playing of this, if we are going to ever want to go out that back alley, we've got to go now, before rain washes something away. Anna says, do we know which alley? Well, it's a little confusing. here is the Burlington house right here. I'm thinking maybe it's this whole big thing here. We can see, we're told there's the scene of the crime, and then we followed the footprints, the bloody footprint out to a locked door. But it said we go down some, I mean, we can look at it again. Okay, just outside the door was a heel print going away from the main entrance with its muddle of obscuring footprints. I hurried down the corridor, passing small rooms filled with books and specimens until I finally came to a locked door. Where does it go? Outside into the alley behind the Burlington arcade. So if this is the arcade, it must mean here, I think. Like it went through some weird alleys, but then it eventually went this way. And that would be here somewhere. It would either be out to this alley here, which looks more like a street and doesn't have any clear places. But I think this would be the more natural thing to think of as the alley, the back alley. And then that would make this the most likely place where someone going into the alley would exit. So I really do think like this is a natural place we would want to go. And if we want to go there, we should probably go there soon. Sorry, can you see it better? This one here. So I think this back, it would make sense that this is the arcade, so this is where the back alley went, and so that would put it right about here, right next to Northwest 5. North is this way, and on our map, I just assume north is up to the top, but is there a little thing? Well, it makes sense. It's perpendicular to Piccadilly, so perpendicular to Piccadilly is this way. So, I mean, I would be inclined to send Wiggins out that back before that trail goes cold. North is perpendicular to Piccadilly, basically, and there's Piccadilly, so perpendicular is north is straight up on our large map. So you could imagine if they came out in this alley, if they turned left, they would go right past Northwest 5. If they kept going straight, they might pass one of these, though that's further away. John says, the alley would be disappointing if it's not the location like we think. But it is suspenseful. I mean, I do think you got to follow the blood while it's still, before it gets washed away. So my vote is we send Wiggins to check the back alley. Hey, if he doesn't find anything there, hopefully he'll look around a little bit. All right, so my vote is Wiggins in the back alley. Where would you guys like to send the other ones? John says, I also like the idea of sending Wiggins to the office of Lawson to snoop around. Let me make an address for John, and to see if that key went missing, right? That would be a big deal too. If his key is missing, then either he used it or someone else used it. Josh Lawson is the secretary. Do we have the secretary's office here? We've got the president's office. We've got the sitting room where they had a fight, the library. Secretary, that's what he is, right? Lawson is the secretary. Let me read the introduction. I believe Lawson is the secretary. secretary. Okay, so Lawson's office is B4. If we wanted to send someone to his office. Wiggins to the alley. Anna says Wiggins to the alley, Watson to the other doctor, Hudson to the lawyer. Jonathan says, I'm a little concerned. Maybe the point is just about the keys and not about following a blood trail into the alley, but I'm fine with sending Wiggins. I mean, you absolutely could be right. There's absolutely, it's quite likely that the trail ends there, and it's just about who had the keys. But if we're ever going to have any hope of it, we got to go, if we're role-playing it, we got to go, well, it's still possible. Watson is the one that's needed in all these different places. Are we agreed to send Miss Hudson to the lawyer and Wiggins to the back alley? Then where do we send Watson? Where's our best bet for Watson? He can go to the Cavendish Club. He can go to the doctor who was first on scene. He could go to the morgue. He could talk to the lineage president. I think probably our best bet is to have him talk to the doctor first on scene. Or the morgue. Those are the two best ones, I think. It depends how soon we want to go to the morgue versus how soon we want to talk to the doctor who was first on scene. Anna's saying Wiggins stands out the road side. That's why it makes sense for him to be searching the back alleys. All right, while you guys figure out where to send Watson, I'm going to enter these entries for Wiggins and Miss Hudson. I think we're agreed about that. So Wiggins is going to go to the back alley, which is, we're hoping, NW5. So let me put Wiggins' sticker on that. I take Jonathan's point. It could be a complete red herring, but not a red herring, but a wasted thing. And then Hudson we're sending to the lawyer, who is looks like I didn't write down nowhere. I thought I did. Maybe, oh, I just put it over here. The lawyer is Southwest 59. Lawyer Archibald Collins, Southwest 59. Let's put her yellow. See, where is she going? Okay, there's where the lawyer works, right there. All right. Steppy says, I think checking the morgue over the doctor might be better to make our own investigation first. Sounds like Steppy says Watson to the morgue. How do you guys feel about that? So our morgue is going to be our medical examiner, EC53, right? Okay, sounds like we're in agreement. We're going to send Watson to the morgue. Let's just make sure we send him to the right hospital. He's taken to the morgue at St. Bartholomew's. Yeah. So St. Bartholomew's is listed in our allies. EC 53. Dr. Lambert at St. Bartholomew's. Okay, so our final move is going to be Watson at EC 53, which is Bartholomew's morgue for the autopsy. And let's mark that with Watson's blue sticker. Okay, so there's Watson. Let's enter our moves. John says, with the alley, another possibility is that you go and talk to the librarian. He gives you a key and you write in a special location address. You mean he would tell us where it opened into the alley? There really doesn't seem like there's any choice. I mean, it's the only number that I see. We already found the door. We know where the door is, according to that description from Watson. I don't think we need anyone to tell us the address of that door, the location of that door, because Watson was in front of it and was asking where it went and got told where it went. I think the natural thing to do, if you see a blood droppings out a door, the natural thing to do is go outside that door and look around. And Watson saw the door, he's in front of it, so I don't think we would need anyone else to tell us where the door is. I think it's time to make our entries, and then we'll find out who had that key. Maybe we just need to see which way they turned. I think you got to go with the blood trail. You see a blood trail. You can't get up in court and say, yeah, I saw a blood trail. Did you follow it? No. That's not going to fly. Anna says, yes, we're with Lawson, and he's got a key also. At least he says he might have a key in his desk drawer. I do think we're going to want to go check and make sure that key's there. Like, we need to account for each key. If we find a missing key, that tells us something. All right, let's go put in our entries. So, Fellowship of the Bones, move 2. Okay, Watson is going to EC 53. Wiggins is going to Northwest 5. And Hudson is going to Southwest 59. Okay. Any objections before I submit those? Hudson's going to the lawyer to sweet talk him into telling us about this case. Wiggins is going to the back alley where he doesn't have to rub people the wrong way. He can do his underworld sniffing about. And Watson has got lots of stuff to do, but we're going to send him to the morgue to check out the body and see if there's any clue there before he starts confronting the people that found the body. I think it makes sense. Okay, and this is 7/6/22. So over 2 weeks ago since we played the first case, but the next one will be in 1 week. It'll be a little fresher. All right, here we go. Sending move. All right, that's it. Move has been sent. Okay. I mean, I think I don't have it's not like our normal cases where we're deep into them and chewing on stuff. This is more of a slow burn. I'm curious to see what we get. We should always keep in mind the idea of danger and people escaping if we don't catch them soon enough. But okay, it's intriguing. I like the replies back we got. It was fun, and I like the puzzle of figuring out who to send where. And it says Alea iacta est, which is was that the motto of the society? What was it? That like don't believe until you see it? What was their motto? I know he recognizes him because he's got the motto on him. No, that motto is nullius in verba, upon no man's word. I don't know what alia iacta est means. Sounds like a Latin statement or a typo. All right, so we're going to pack this up. We'll play it again in a week. We'll figure out what the right day and time to play. If we don't think of anything better, we'll play it again on the next Wednesday at 11 p.m. The die is cast. There's no return now. I see. That's a nice statement. The die is cast. Alea iacta est. All right. So if you guys are joining me for the LA Noir case, this is a lot to keep bouncing around in your head. I'll see you tomorrow. Otherwise on Friday for Baker Street Irregulars post case 10. Thanks for joining me. And about an hour and 20 minutes. All right. I'll see you tomorrow, next time, whatever.